and that sort of thing. Welcome back. Rob Port sitting in for the chairman, Scott Hennon. We're gonna, coming fresh off these poll numbers about trust in government. CNN showing that just 15% of Americans trust their government right now. A couple days ago, Gallup poll showing that just 19% of Americans are satisfied with their government. We're going to launch into what I think is one of the examples, the biggest reasons why we're not trusting the government right now, which is Solyndra. And here to talk with me about it is Congressman and Dr. Michael Burgess, Republican for Texas, also sitting on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Dr. Burgess, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Let me, do you agree with me that Solyndra is a big reason why Americans are not trusting their government right now as we watch things like this happen?
Well, this is just one small part of one small piece of why it is that trust has eroded. But when you look at what was going on behind the scenes at Office of Management of the Budget and the Department of Energy, while these loans were supposedly being vetted by these two agencies under direct control by the administration, you get the impression that lower-level staff were not being listened to. Their concerns were being dismissed and ignored. You saw terms in the emails like, don't let them jam us again, that Solyndra will be a litmus test for other types of stimulus funding that is going to go out the door for green energy stuff. And it is that type of activity. And then when they, in their own estimation, said that this company will be out of money in 2 years' time, that 2 years ending in September of 2011, well, they were exactly right. Their actuaries were correct, and the company filed bankruptcy in September of 2011. Well, if the administration knew that that was a risk, why push this company? Why push it so hard? Why push it with an amount of money that was not really consistent with other awards and loan guarantees given to other companies? And really, this was a difference in philosophy. They were supporting a company that was producing solar tubes or solar panels. Most of the other loan guarantees were going to companies that were actually generating electricity that had agreements and sale agreements already in place. So this was a particularly dicey activity, and why do that? What was the compelling reason for that to occur?
Let me read you something. The Wall Street Journal's got a report on this morning, and I want to read you something out of this because this really struck me. And this, I mean, I've been following this. This kind of brought a lot of it home for me, though. Reading from the article, I quote, Solyndra, LLC, had such steep financial problems in late 2010 that the company violated terms of its loan guarantee agreement with the Department of Energy and technically defaulted on its $535 million loan, according to people familiar with the matter. The failed solar panel maker, which is under numerous criminal and congressional investigations, ran so short of cash in December 2010 that it was unable to satisfy certain terms of its U.S. loan agreement. These people said the agreement required Solyndra to provide $5 million in equity to a subsidiary building its factory, but cash flow problems prevented those payments. The Energy Department ultimately restructured the loan agreement to help keep the company afloat, and Solyndra continued to draw money from its loans. So we knew at the end of 2010 that Solyndra was a problem. They had already technically defaulted on their loan, and yet the Energy Department took action to restructure it so that they could continue getting stimulus money. Shouldn't we have stopped the bleeding then?
Absolutely, and it was in February, right after the Congress, the majority in the House changed in January, and in February the committee began to make demands of the Department of Energy to provide us with documentary information, which they refused to do, which ultimately led to me filing a resolution in July to issue a subpoena. I was criticized at the time for doing it, that I wasn't working well with others, and that I was being obstinate. The subpoena passed on a party line vote. The Democrats all opposed it. But it turns out that had we been a little quicker on the switch, maybe we could have saved some of the taxpayer money, because the activity to which you refer actually subordinated part of the taxpayer obligation to these venture capitalists who were now putting the additional infusion of cash into the company that was having difficulty meeting its obligations. One of the gentlemen that are hearing from Department of Energy said, look, I was a venture capitalist. That's the way these things are done all the time. Well, no, sir. The taxpayer cannot be a venture capitalist. There's no way the taxpayer can know the risks involved. I appreciate what venture capitalists do. I want them to do what they do, but the taxpayer should not become a venture capitalist against their will.
Well, venture capitalists choose to venture their capital. I mean, they're choosing to put their money in. They're choosing to taking that risk. The taxpayers don't necessarily get that choice when we're doing things like this. This is something else from the Wall Street Journal that bothered me. I quote, the company's financial problems prompted the Department of Energy earlier this year to allow it to reshuffle its debt. Under the arrangement, private investors agreed to provide a new $75 million loan and won the right to be paid ahead of the government if the company was liquidated. How is it that the people, I mean, because these are people choosing to invest in this company. These are the quote-unquote venture capitalists we're just talking about. They're making the choice to risk their money in this company. How do they get to be repaid before the taxpayers? How do you win something like that?
Well, and I think that is, if I'm reading things correctly, that in itself is a violation of law, 2005 law that was passed in the Energy Policy Act. And, of course, that is one of the aspects that Department of Justice is evaluating, that Secretary of Treasury, Inspector General is evaluating. Our committee, of course, is looking into those procedures that were followed or not followed by Department of Energy and Office of Management of the Budget. Issues of criminality are being handled in other areas, but they're obviously as important, if not more important, and it's clear that the government needs to get to the bottom of that.
855-200-1776. Email Rob at Say Anything Blog if you want to join the program. So what's ahead? I mean, I know your committee that you're on, the House Energy and Commerce Committee, is continuing to investigate this. I mean, at what state are we in, and what's the outcome of all this investigating going to be? I mean, what can the taxpayers expect to get their money back? What ultimately, what's going to happen with this?
Well, the first order of business, as I saw it, was there were additional loan guarantees provided for in the stimulus bill that were yet to be dispersed, and the time frame for those was getting quite condensed. In other words, that money has to get out the door by the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th, or those deals fall apart. So Department of Energy is working with great haste and dispatch to get those things funded. But wait a minute, it was Solyndra where they were working with great haste and dispatch where these foul-ups occurred. So if you're going to make bad mistakes like that when you're hurrying to get a photo op done, what kind of mistakes are you likely to make if you're hurrying to get this money out the door ahead of a deadline? And that is where I have asked for the Department of Energy to provide materials to committee staff so that we can evaluate those loans that are right now obligated but not funded, to make certain that there are not shortcuts being taken that would further put taxpayer dollars at risk. We can argue about the rightness or wrongness should these programs have ever been there in the first place. I voted against the stimulus. I thought it was a dumb idea then. It's a worse idea now. But let's at least make sure the rules are followed with the money that's going out the door,
right,
and that the taxpayers not further put at risk in this.
Yeah, the law is a law. Let me ask you this. One of the strangest bits of news to come out of this now is that, and quickly, I tell you what, can you hold on to after the break? I want to ask you one more question.
Sure, sure enough.
Sure, okay, we'll be right back after this, talking with Dr. Michael Burgess, Republican out of Texas, about Solyndra. More coming up straight ahead on the Scott Hennon Show. I'm Rob Port. Don't go away. Welcome back. Rob Port sitting in for the chairman, Scott Hennon. We've got Congressman Dr. Michael Burgess, Republican from Texas and a member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, talking Solyndra. And Congressman, I just had a couple more quick questions. I know you're a busy man, and we'll get to them here quickly. My first question was, did we ever find out that the strangest news was that the Democrat Party of California was one of Solyndra's creditors? The Democrat Party saying Solyndra doesn't owe them any money. They're not sure why they're listed. Have we figured out what happened with that yet?
The short answer from my perspective is no, but obviously that is a very intriguing piece of information and one that someone at some point is going to have to provide some answers.
All right, and then the other question was, how much does Obama's direct knowledge of the risky nature of this loan with concerns from his own staff worry you? Because we have news, I mean, they were saying that this was a potential disaster, or I forget the words they used specifically, but clearly he was warned that this was a problem. Yeah, we learned at the end of last year, Department of Energy, which of course is part of the executive branch, restructuring this loan. how much does this concern you that the president knew this was a problem and we pushed ahead with it anyway?
Well, it's a great concern, and obviously that's why more than our little committee is doing the investigation now, and Department of Justice did go to the headquarters of the company and impound their records, and I think that's appropriate, and obviously those will be gone through by career people. You do worry because it's the administration's Department of Justice, but for the present time, yes, I'll trust those career people in the FBI, Department of Justice, to go through those accounts and provide some answers. And, of course, you do have the Inspector General of the Treasury Department. Now, yes, that, too, the Treasury is a branch of the administration, so can they investigate themselves? And eventually this is the question that it is going to have to be taken up, is can everyone be satisfied, is the public's knowledge and comfort level such that nothing further need be done? But at least at the present time, those two groups being involved in the investigation, to me, is extremely helpful. Our committee is tasked with overseeing the Department of Energy and the Office of Management of the Budget down in the White House, and that's been our focus. But the other focus, which is on the more sinister aspects of this, clearly that belongs in the criminal realm, not the civil realm, and that's the appropriate response.
And especially, growing on these concerns, the fact that many of these cylinder investors were also tied to Obama's campaign fundraising.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
extremely uncomfortable, isn't it? That's extremely uncomfortable. It shouldn't be happening, and yes, that adds another element to this that you brought up your original point that the trust in government is at an all-time low, and this is one of the reasons why. That sort of unseemly back-scratching is... It just has no place in this. If the science is such that supports this type of technology, great. The Democrats are always quick to throw science back at the conservatives, but come on, if the science was there, why did you need all of this other stuff? Why did you need the bundler being there and being involved in this? There was no reason for that, and it just makes it all appear, again, more sinister than it may be, but nevertheless, now the questions have been raised and the answers need to be forthcoming.
You'd like to think that if the science was there, they could make solar panels and sell them to the private sector, not need the government to, quote-unquote, invest in them to begin with. Anyway, Dr. Burgess, we'll let you go. I know you're a busy man.
But thanks so much, Rob. Come on again.
Congressman and Dr. Michael Burgess, Republican out of Texas, member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which is investigating the Solyndra matter. And I think the congressman makes the point, and I guess I made it too at the beginning, was, you want to talk about why Americans don't trust their government? Well, this is it. This is it. And this is why, frankly, I'm skeptical of the government giving money to these businesses to begin with. Why? If a business has a sound business plan and they're providing a product that works, that people actually want, then they don't need government subsidies. And they don't need to have as their investors, politically well-connected people who can visit the White House. They don't need those things when they're providing something that America wants, or that the public at large wants. It's the companies that don't have a very good product, that have a marginal business plan. They're the ones who need the government to survive. We subsidize Solyndra because the government decided that we needed to have more solar panels. But the thing is that the science isn't there yet for solar panels. I'm not against solar panels. I've said it before. If I could bolt a solar panel to the roof of my house and avoid paying my electric bill, or even, reduce my, if that was cost effective for me, I would do it. I don't mind using solar panels. I'm not like anti-solar. But it's just, it's just the fact of the matter is that we're not ready for it yet. And we could go broke as a country trying to cram these things down our throats. The government trying to cram these things down our throats. And, along the way, whether or not, crony capitalism is involved or what have you. Did the Obama administration make the decisions they made because, big Obama campaign donors were involved in the company? Well, we don't know the answer to that question. Honestly, the only people who do know that question are the donors themselves and President Obama. We can never know, but it certainly provides an appearance of impropriety, and that's something we ought to avoid. That's why the government isn't supposed to be investing in private companies to begin with. We have another story about this. You remember we talked about a commercial that Ford had put out, right? They've got these commercials where they have a customer go out and they test drive a car, and then they come in and they're put in an impromptu press conference, and Ford records it and makes a commercial out of it. Well, one of the people they asked, in the press conference, and these are real customers, these are real people that they're making the commercials from. The guy said, that he chose Ford because he wanted to go with a company that hadn't been bailed out. Well, according to a columnist writing in Detroit, the Obama administration has now gotten Ford to pull that ad. I'm not kidding you. It says, the ad pulled in response to White House questions. This is from Detroit columnist David Howe, writing in the Detroit News. Pulled in response to White House questions. So the White House basically bullied Ford into pulling this ad. And then you start to look, well, the federal government owns Chrysler. Owns General Motors. And they own, part of Chrysler, too. And, the United Auto Workers Union, big supporter of President Obama and big supporter of the bailouts. And you start to think, well, now we've got the government pressuring a private company, telling them what ads they can and cannot run, what criticisms they can and cannot launch against their competitors, and their competitors just happen to be owned by the government. I mean, that's the sort of problems we run into. Now, was the Obama administration motivated by politics? I think so. Maybe you don't think so. But either way, there's an appearance of impropriety there when the government is involved in this sort of thing, which is why the government ought not to be involved in that sort of thing. Anyway, I'm Rob Port. Happy to sit in for the chairman, Scott Hennon. He's back tomorrow, 40 Days for Life. Friday, Congressman Kristi Noem's going to be on the program. Lynn Helms, Director of the Oil and Gas Division, North Dakota Industrial Commission. Next week, Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels. I'm Rob Port. We'll talk again. Thanks for listening.